I was recently on a popular website, and there was a thread where a person asked the question, when and where did the duckface phenomenon start? And I noticed some of the answers referring to the mid-2000s with MySpace and the latter with the popularity of selfies and smartphones, in which I had to interject pointing out with actual proof that the duckface peace sign thing was started by Letoya Luckett back in 1999 on the Destiny's Child video, Bugaboo. Now, in order for me to give clarification, I have to give some background information. According to the website Know Your Meme, the trend of the duckface photos can be attributed to the emergence of social networking profiles, most notably with the launch of MySpace in 2003 and its rise to mainstream popularity in July 2005. But there's just one problem with this statement, and it has to do with not acknowledging social media's precursor to MySpace, which consisted of two things. One, online chat rooms, and two, the website Black Planet, which was MySpace before MySpace existed. Side note, now I'm going to go on a tangent for a sec, but I'm coming right back. I noticed when speaking on the history of social media, Black Planet being a precursor to MySpace is never acknowledged. Like, for instance, if you go to the Wikipedia page of Black Planet, the info is all wrong. It says Black Planet was launched in September 2001, but that's impossible because I was introduced to Black Planet while deployed in Bosnia in late 1999, and it was two white soldiers who put me onto the website. Being in the military in 1999, I was surrounded by soldiers who were into computers, Angel Fire pages, AOL chat rooms, Napster, burning CDs on a CDR, and online games like Half-Life were the in thing. In 1999, Yahoo as a search engine was the king, and knowing where all the cool websites were was usually by word of mouth. Like, for instance, there was this very popular website called collegeclub.com, which was like a precursor to what Facebook would become. Another example was the shock website bangedup.com, which was somewhat similar to the very popular rotten.com. Bangedup.com consisted of gore, sexuality, explicit comics, videos, and pictures which were weird sexual acts and dark comedy of various sorts. It usually consisted of one page with a bunch of links to crazy images or videos, and it would update every week. By the late 2000s, bangedup.com changed from a shock site to a porn site, which it runs as till this very day. These websites, along with blackplanet.com, were all introduced to me by my fellow military comrades in 1999. Because again, word of mouth was how one became aware of popular websites. And I'm mentioning them to show you that I was very well aware of what was going on online in 1999 and 2000. So now, going back to how it was Letoya Luckett that started the duckface peace sign pose back in 1999 on the Destiny's Child video Bugaboo, we have to speak on the chat rooms that were popular at the time. When I came home from Bosnia in February 2000, in which I now had an interest in owning a computer and going online, I soon became addicted to chat rooms. One of my favorite chat rooms was Excite Chat. With Excite Chat, users were allowed to use avatars, and those avatars would consist of pictures of various sorts. This is an example of how it looked, and as you can see, there is Bart Simpson, Homer Simpson, Garfield, and so on. I remember using this picture of Cannabis, and I'll never forget someone joking that I must be the real Cannabis because he has no fans. I'm going to have to get racial in my following breakdown because there is a difference between urban social media and non-urban social media. When I was on Excite Chat, I preferred going into black-related chat rooms. Now I'm going to show you this picture. This is a still pic of some unknown girl in Ludacris's video, What's Your Fantasy? I remember seeing someone using this as an avatar in Excite Chat, and it blew my mind because this was 2000. And I was new to computers and was wondering how she transferred the pic from the TV to her computer. Doing that in 2021 is as easy as pressing print screen on a YouTube video. But YouTube didn't exist back then, so the mystery of how that person was able to transfer something that was only on TV to the computer was advanced knowledge to me. But that wouldn't be the only time I would see something from a music video used as an avatar. Another popular avatar in Excite Chat was Letoya Luckett throwing up the duckface peace sign from that Destiny's Child video Bugaboo. But not only was the still a popular AVI, the GIF itself was a popular GIF on Black Planet too. Well, to word it better, I remember the GIF being posted numerous times on Black Planet. Keep in mind, Bugaboo was the last time Letoya would be a part of any Destiny's Child video. One can say her throwing up the deuces gesturing a goodbye was symbolic of her leaving Destiny's Child for good. So Bugaboo was Letoya, as well as Latavia's last Destiny's Child hoorah, which would follow a controversial public breakup. And around this time, Destiny's Child were going from stars to MTV megastars in pop music, so it was nothing to see Destiny's Child alliance by fans online. Let me also add that Bugaboo wasn't the only time that Letoya would do the Duckface pose while throwing up the peace sign. That was actually her signature. She did it all the time to the point where I always assumed she was the one who started the trend. Now, I didn't think to collect every picture where Letoya did it, but there are a bunch of them still floating around. This pic sees Letoya Luckett rocking the So-So Def hat, which confirms the picture was taken around 2006 when Letoya had Jermaine Dupri producing songs from her 2006 self-titled album. And this is another Duckface peace sign pose from the 2006 self-titled era. Letoya even went as far as confirming this was her signature in the 2010 video Good to Me. Going back to the website Know Your Meme, the Duckface article itself was written 10 years ago, which puts it at early 2011. And the article pinpoints 2006 as its origin, yet Letoya had music videos and pics doing the Duckface peace sign pose floating around years before that Know Your Meme article existed. Now, I never knew to grab pics from the early mid-2000s, waiting on that day in 2021 when such a conversation of, well, where did the Duckface trend start? So those pics are just what I was able to scrap up in 2021, which in itself is telling, being that I found some still floating around without doing too much digging. But again, I remember the Duckface peace sign pose being a signature Letoya Luckett thing. I specifically remember in the mid-2000s at one point thinking, she's always doing that pose. But to really bring it home, if I'm stressing that this was something she was already doing in the 2000s and that it's her signature, then surely she'd still be doing it after 2010, right? So I went to her Instagram page, and lo and behold, I didn't have to do much scrolling until I confirmed what I already knew. Now, what I'm doing is what's considered oral tradition. I'm passing down a story of my testimony on an event that happened in the 2000s. But as you listen to me tell the story, you might say to yourself, well, what credibility does he have that I should believe his version of events? Especially when I don't have such access to further confirm that Letoya was doing this Duckface peace sign pose before it became a social media wave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really try to bring this all home by showing you a few pictures with details. And this is for anyone who remembers early, mid-2000s social media, whether it was urban or non-urban. Now walk with me. Now for those that were active in early 2000s social media, whether it was urban or non-urban, I want you to pay close attention to these pictures. This young lady, her name is Coweritz. Now, if you were active on Black Planet in the early 2000s, around 2002, 2003, 2004, you remember this picture being the #1 catfish picture on Black Planet. So many fake profiles were using this picture to the point where anyone who was actually active on Black Planet in the early 2000s can confirm that this was the #1 catfish picture on Black Planet. Now, this young lady, her name is Brianna. If you were active on MySpace in the mid-2000s, then you acknowledge that this was the #1 catfish picture on MySpace. Now, MySpace had a lot of catfish pictures, but this one, there was no picture floating around social media like this picture. Now, this is Angela Devi. If you were on social media in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, 2003, you know who Angela Devi is. I'm not going to go into the details of who this person is. You should already know. And this young lady, her name is Christina Model. Again, I'm not going to go into the details, but if you were active on social media, you know who this is. And this is just me really bringing it home to confirm that I am somebody who was very well aware of what was going on in early 2000s social media, whether it was urban or non-urban. Going back to that conversation I had on that popular website, when the question came up about when and where did the Duckface phenomenon start, I presented all of these talking points and receipts. I also pointed out that the precursors on the Know Your Meme website were reaches that had nothing to do with posing in front of a camera, making a duck face, and throwing up a peace sign. And I also noticed they failed to acknowledge Letoya Luckett overall. And I closed out by saying that if anyone else had proof that someone who not only did it before 1999, but also was recognized doing it on early social media platforms, as well as still doing it in the mid-2000s as if it was their signature, on top of still doing it years on their social media page, then prove it. Of course, nobody could, because they can't. Someone finally replied, and I quote, "Well, I hate her for creating all those sheep." So in conclusion, seeing that the replies in that conversation were relying on the info of the website Know Your Meme, I felt it was only right to inform of a moment on social media where a single person already had avatars and GIFs floating around before 2003, and that person was Letoya Luckett.